Good morning. It is Monday, January 13th. I'm Rick Ellis, and thank you for watching this video. Usually it just goes out to paid subscribers. Every so often, I like to send it out to all the subscribers just so you can kind of see what one of the things that you get if you're a paid subscriber. So this morning I was originally going to talk about the wildfire and the impact it was having on Hollywood. I'm going to write about that more for the website and the newsletter later. I wanted to talk a little bit about some news that just came out this morning that Rachel Maddow is returning to MSNBC's primetime schedule 5 days a week for the first 100 days of the Trump administration. And as part of a sort of rejiggering a little bit of the network's coverage in primetime, Alex Wagner is going to go on the road basically to kind of do what she was doing in Showtime's The Circus, and she's done a couple of these things since she went back to MSNBC, talking to people in smaller communities, people away from the Beltway to kind of get a sense of what's going on. I think obviously it's great for MSNBC for both of those things. Rachel Maddow, I think, arguably is the best person in cable TV when it gets to talking about the news and putting it in a context that people can really appreciate. Alex Wagner's really good at those. I don't know. They're not really man on the street pieces per se, but she's really good at talking to people, getting things out of them that you wouldn't normally see on cable news. I think it's a plus for them. There's going to be some other little rejiggering things that Chris Hayes is going to be doing a piece. I want to make sure I get this correct here, called "Here's What Is True." It's basically going to examine misinformation that's coming out. And that's really close to kind of what he's been doing on his show already. He's not labeling it that, but he's really been pushing back about some of the misinformation, or trying to put a piece of misinformation in context to let audiences know, hey, this is why this is being said and this is the impact. I think it's great. There's also going to be Jen Psaki's going to do a podcast called The Blueprint with Jen Psaki, and it's going to examine the future of the Republican, or excuse me, geez, the Democratic Party after the election. And I'm not quite sure how I feel about that yet. I have to listen to it. Jen Psaki's obviously really good. This is really nothing to do with her at all. Um, but I think, one of my criticisms, maybe my primary criticism of MSNBC in general, is that they were too willing to sort of buy into the conventional wisdom from the Democratic Party apparatus over the election cycle. That there's a lot of people who work at the network who have connections to going back to the Biden administration, the Obama administration, the Harris campaign. There's a lot of inside stuff there, and while that is great, sometimes you need a bit more perspective than that. You need some people out there who's saying, "Look, they made some bad decisions, or they're going in a wrong direction." And from talking to people, my fear is that a lot of the Democratic Party apparatus have not really come to terms with what bad decisions they made, or they realize they made a bad decision, but their option is to basically double down on what they were doing before. Oh, this was a great idea. We just executed it poorly, which I think most people who are not part of that world would disagree with. There was some really core bad decisions made. I think for Democrats to win, we need to make some wholesale changes. And I hope a lot of that's reflected in this Jen Psaki podcast. And this sort of gets back to what I was writing a couple of months ago about CNN. And I was talking about the fact that I really wanted them to go more in a populist direction, because populist news stories, populist issues cut across partisan lines, right? I mean, if you're suddenly you live in a mobile home park, or you're trying to get ski passes, you're paying more money, and you're paying more money primarily because hedge funds are coming in and taking them over and jacking up the price. And they're able to do that because laws have been changed over the past 2 decades that allow them to do that. Those are the kind of stories that cut across everything, every demographic, every area. There are a lot of situations like, and a lot of stories that can be covered that wouldn't necessarily be, quote, Democrat or Republican. I'd like to see MSNBC, I'd like to see CNN leaning more into that. I think it's something that would engage viewers. It would engage younger viewers, and we get people talking. But I'm not running the network, so hey, what do I know? regardless, I'm looking forward to seeing Rachel back on a Monday through Friday schedule, at least for the next 100 days. And I'm curious to see what happens. I by far watch MSNBC more than anything else. Excuse me, cable news wise, I still haven't quite recovered from this cold. It still got a little nagging thing I can't quite shake. Um, particularly in prime time, I tend to watch Chris Hayes and that the Chris Hayes, Jen Psaki, Rachel Maddow, Alex Wagner combination. That's pretty much my go-to. Uh, so I want to see them do well. I want to see them improve and be as helpful and thoughtful as they can be. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this shakes out. I'm curious to see what all of you think. As always, you can leave something in the comments or send me an email at rick@allyourscreens.com, and I will see you tomorrow.